Morning, everybody. I'm at the Seek conference right now in Missouri, Seek 23. First time here at the Seek conference. So there's like 300 or 400 priests getting vested. I walked around the corner. I'm walking around the corner, turning into the sacristy, and I see this person right here that I hadn't seen for 20 years.
Yeah,
so
about 20 years.
I'm myself, in case you use this video, I'm Father Vinh Pham, Legionaries of Christ, and this is Father...
I'm Father Brandon Dang from the Diocese of Orange, the Vocations Director.
So I see this and I give him a massive hug.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen him for 20 years. The crazy thing is we didn't even realize while we were going through formation that we both started our formation at the exact same time on completely different tracks.
Yep.
So the reason why I wanted to put this video together was actually first, it's a 20-year reunion. We're here having breakfast together and we're walking through the beauty of what God has done in our lives.
And we've been here for like 2 hours already. And there's more to unpack,
I'm just scratching the surface and he just asked me a question and I was like, Father, we have to do a rain check on this one because there's no way we're going to be able to cover this one.
Yeah, this has been such a blessing though, man. Like, I remember seeing you from the far. When you turned that corner, I was like, dude, I know that guy.
No way.
But then it was like kind of like, wait, the context is kind of off sometimes. You're like, wait, I know this guy. Wait, I know this guy. And I remember just as we hugged, it was great because you see the other priests around too. I was looking around. The guys were like, wow, man, that's some fraternal love right there, you know? And I think that was just all 20 years, like just kind of coming out and just being like, wow, this is awesome, you know? And to see you as a priest, for me, that's been such a blessing too. So just wanted to share that.
I don't know if I can express it anyway, but I am so happy right now.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here trying to catch up on our different stories.
Yeah.
And well, we used to play basketball together. That was like our one connection playing basketball. I moved away and I started discernment. I went to the seminary and I saw on Facebook that he went into discernment and things and I heard bits and pieces. This is one of those cases where I didn't expect him to be a priest, but I'm also not surprised that he entered the seminary.
Yeah. The feeling's mutual.
And so as we're telling our story, and I'm sitting here, I'm sinking in my seat, I'm sinking and sinking and sinking because everything he's walking through, down to the timeline and the emotional experience and the call, the love of the Father, falling in love with Mary. And it's like he's speaking to a mirror image. And I'm looking at him, and you're probably looking at the two of us. We kind of look the same too, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're both that tall.
We're actually both, I'm 6'2", I'll tell you.
Yeah, same.
Oh my God, the exact same.
Yeah, that's another thing. Another thing.
Okay, we're both 6'2", play basketball together. And
that's been our phrase right now. It's like we're talking to a mirror. That's what we've been saying this whole thing.
He'll repeat, he'll tell his vocation story, and I'll ask the timeline. I'm like, you're speaking to a mirror right now because my emotions were the exact same thing as you're walking through. And then I go back and I explain some things, and he says it's the exact same thing as we're walking through. Actually, you know what? Let me double check real quick that I'm recording.
Okay, yeah, that's important. You're recording?
Okay, perfect. I am recording.
It's red too, so your thing is red.
So that's just being here, being able to share this, and for me, the highlight of this one, I don't even know what the highlight was, but I feel like I'm...
All of it.
The beauty, the reason why I wanted to even share this one was because I was looking at Father and I'm saying, Father, it'd be irresponsible of us to not share the joy that God has done in our lives, to walk through, because I feel like it's not fair. It's not fair what I get to receive as a priest. The things I get to touch people on a level that's inhumane. In like the fullest of sense, like it's not human what we get to experience. We had 300 to 400 priests last night. Vested for confession. And things like that. You get to hear the beauty of lives, cry with people, like hug people, so it's amazing. So I don't know if you want to share something about how you came about. Well, we don't want to make this video too long, and they probably want to kick us out eventually too. But we just want to share the joy that we have in our vocation.
I mean, when you speak about that, Father Vinh, it's truly incredible, and it's definitely not fair. And then at the same time, I think we're trying to do this so that way we can be able to really tap into the beauty that everybody has, that joy, everybody has that opportunity, you know? And so for us being able to hear that, at least for me, it's also been really cool to know that somebody else experienced the same joy. And that's, as priests, I think that's what ultimately we want to do, is be able to share, you know, that joy of Jesus Christ that we have had, you know, with everybody else, you know, too. So, this retreat, this whole conference, being able to meet, you know, with you and this other priest, and confession last night, as you mentioned, just seeing. And
you were sitting right behind me, actually.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like I was sitting right back.
300 or 400 priests, he was sitting. He was a priest
and that was
right
not
behind
planned.
me.
That was not planned, you know. And so, but in terms of joy of the life, you know, itself. I mean, I remember going through and kind of tapping into the vocation story, you know, a little bit. Is I just remember going through the motions of life like all of us do, right? Or what we think is joyful, that we kind of follow this kind of cookie-cutter process. Okay, I go to school, I get good grades, I then go further along in further education, you try to get your degree towards a career. So that was what I was doing in my life at the time. And again, Father Vinh and I were just sharing that and how much of it was very identical, that as we were going through our life, I know for me, again, I went through a really difficult time my senior year, personally, and my family, and all that. So I was robbed of that joy in a certain way, or I was searching for that joy. And so I was just kind of reaching out and trying to find where I can be able to experience that. And so I just thought, hey, success, maybe that's the place to find joy. And then looking back at the pain that I was experiencing, it was important for me to be able to, all right, how do I sub this in a certain way? So it was like, I'm going to be the best father and husband, and I just felt that was what I needed to do, because I was going through a breakup of the family and everything. So through almost that resentment and fear and that hatred or that anger, I wanted to head in that direction. So I thought I was going through life, going to college, getting ready to transfer, even had a girlfriend. And then I go to this retreat, just this random vocation retreat that the youth group I was really involved with were a part of. So I go to it, and actually, first of all, I was bored out of my mind. I was just I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this. Then I heard a vocation story from a priest, and that completely started to change my own heart. And at the same time, before that, we were sharing in our small groups about what we were doing, and I felt this emptiness and this void. I wanted to fill it. And so then this priest, he then shared a story, and I was completely captivated.
But it wasn't your parish priest.
No,
but at that time, I was going to a church where that priest was the parish priest.
Yeah,
so we were crossing paths in different places too.
Yeah, different places, different times. And so, I then heard this vocation story, and he talked about this peace and this joy that I wanted. And he talked about the fulfillment of the priesthood, how he grew in the love of God the Father. And so I was like, what if I became a priest, And I remember debriefing that with the youth group kids, and they were just saying, we think you'd be a cool priest. And at first they were kind of
what are you talking about?
Are you sure, dude? No way. And then they started saying, we think you'd be a cool priest. And that actually was not what I wanted to hear. I just wanted to hear, no, it's just a phase.
We kind of got the same reactions too.
Yeah,
from our
yeah,
friends back at home. It's
exactly. No, there's no way. I think I don't know if I should confess this or not, but a lot of them say you're too girl crazy. It's there's no way.
Yeah, and you're speaking to a mirror.
Yeah, there we go. So, and then after that, I was just completely captivated, but I kind of brushed it off. And then months went by, I just could not shake this feeling. And I felt so confused, in a way hurt, because now God has put this in my life. And I remember going to Mass. And this was 4 months after this whole thing happened. And so I'm churning with this throughout the couple months. And I was I need to go to Mass. I'm going to go to Mass early, I'm going to pray. And so I sitting there and praying, and I hated the position I was in. I was just why is this happening? And so I'm sitting there God, you suck. I literally said that. I mean, sorry, Lord, but I was God, you suck.
That's the kind of language we were both using.
Yeah, I know.
My story too. I had one where I wanted to rip God out of the tabernacle. I was so mad at him for something else. But I was God, you suck.
Yeah, because Father Vinh was going through his own struggles.
Almost the exact same time in the same year. It was the end of 2008, beginning of 2009.
Yep, that's right.
I went through the exact same thing.
Yeah, and so same thing. And then it was just more, all right, Lord. And I know you're not supposed to pray like this, but I did. And I bargained with him, and I said, Lord, you have me in the worst position, and just give me a sign. Just give me something that I can chew upon, something that's obvious, and I'll do whatever it is that you want me to do. And then I decided to, so then I prayed about that, and then, bam, elevation. During the Eucharist, I felt this immense peace that I just could not shake. I mean, I always get chills, and I tell the story all the time, and every single time I always get chills.
Same.
I was overcome by God's love and peace. That it was actually overwhelming. And I was telling Father Vinh that because when the elevation of the host came down, the chalice went up. So that subsided. When the chalice went up, I felt it again. At that moment, I wanted to run out of the church because I was just so overwhelmed by it. And then I recalled the story that Father Ben Tran talked about, how he spoke about the exact same peace that he experienced when his call to priesthood. And that was where I was like, oh my gosh, now it all makes sense. But at the time I was like, wait, what was that? And so at the end of Mass, I asked that question to God, what was that? And he was like, that was your sign. And now what are you going to do with it? And so then I started to reflect upon it. I was like, okay, that's a sign, but what does it mean? And then there was this scripture passage and Jesus' words as he was talking to the disciple, called his disciples, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And when that happened, I knew, because for me, that was the two greatest gifts, really, was the scripture through the word, come follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. And as a priest, the most precious gift that we have as priests is to be able to celebrate the Mass. And here it is happening at that exact time. And I just said, okay, Lord. And this is where a mirror image of what Father Vinh was talking about. Look, I don't know if I am really called to be a priest, but I just know that I'm called to say yes to this next step. So for me, the next step was seminary.
But for me, very similar. I'm not going to add to my whole story, but my most memorable moment in my entire life that I'll never forget was Easter Vigil 2009. It was during the elevation of the Eucharist, and it was the most overwhelming experience I've ever had in my life. Like, my skin couldn't contain the joy that I had in my life when Christ came back. And it was a huge sign for me. But since he shared that one, because I'm not going to share mine because it's kind of almost like a mirror image, but I want to share something else about our relationship with Mary. So going through all of this, it's kind of like Mary, we're manly. It's like we're 6'2", we're pretty big.
Yeah.
Usually we play well basketball and other sports too, right?
Sure.
And so just out there being a priest, being tall, being strong, encouraging guys to this greater manhood. But what people don't usually realize is, well, actually, as I was sharing this, I said I would not be here if it wasn't for my relationship with Mary. And Mary has allowed me to not worry about being the one out there, the one having the perfect preaching, the perfect homily, the perfect retreat. When I'm with Mary, I get to be a boy. I'm just a boy who gets to embrace Mary, our mother, our spiritual mother, and I don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
And so that allows me to be free.
Yeah.
And I get to embrace her, caress her, and that allows us to be actually non-robotic and be tender. Like and you were sharing that. What I love you were sharing, and I identify with that.
Yeah.
You said you went to modern day school and you saw these huge, big, burly, 6'3", 250-pound guys.
Yeah.
But when they're next to their moms, they become
they
like
melt.
these little boys that are very malleable.
Yeah.
That's what Mother does. That's what Mary does for me. And I wanted to share this picture.
I was gonna talk about this too. So Father Vinh just gave me his ordination card. So it's actually a tradition for newly ordained that we have a image that we have on the front of our ordination card. On the back, there's some sort of prayer, scripture, and also just to commemorate that beautiful day. And it was crazy. I look at this image because I was sharing with Father Vinh of my favorite image of the Blessed Mother, which is the icon of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And for those of you who know that image, it's this image about Jesus, toddler Jesus, running into the Blessed Mother's arms. And so I see myself as that child and how much that she's meant to me in terms of those moments where I needed to run to her and my own relationship with my own mother. And we were talking about that too, how both of us have very strong relationships with our moms, and our dads were kind of like distant from our lives, but our mothers were the ones that we could always run into for safety. And then the image that he has is almost, it's like the modern version of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It's little baby Jesus, or little toddler Jesus praying in Mary's lap. And how they're praying, because first of all, Jesus has his hands in prayer hands, but also in the Jewish tradition, they usually light up a little little candle thing to pray. And so as he gave this to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just, again, mirror images of how the Blessed Mother has been in our life and how we've continued to run to her.
It's like even though Jesus is God, he's the Word made flesh, even though he's God, in this image, he's still a son. And even though we're priests, we're out there, we're hearing confessions, we're bringing God, the Word made flesh, down on the altar every single day, we're still a son. And I think that's the most awesome part about being the son of Mary is I don't have to worry about any of these great things that the world sees. I'm just a son. And so it gives me a lot of consolation that I just get to be me. So for those of you who are I guess, words like, what's my image like? How do I have to act? Well, Mother knows. And even more so, if you see the image in the background, it's like, they're at home with the pots and pans in the background. And it's the mundane, it's the everyday life. Anybody can have a relationship with Mary. You can start with the rosary. And that's how it started for me. Holding the rosary was like holding her hand. I'll go through a big event with guys. It's like, I'm big, I'll fight with Christ, I'll preach, and I'll stay up all night, I'll do whatever it takes. But as I'm holding Mary's hands, like I start to shrink and shrink and shrink, and I become just a boy.
Yeah,
And that's awesome.
Yeah,
So-
and then that kind of touching of her hand reminded me, I shared with Father Vinh this little tradition that my family used to have. So my mom, on our breaks, she would always take us to 9 a.m. Mass, whether we were kicking or screaming or just even wanted to go or whatever, we went. And so we had this tradition after the Mass, and both of us went to the same parish. That's how we got to know each other as well in our, younger. And so after the Mass, my mom would take my brother and I over to the devotional corner, like every church has, like an image, a statue. So there was the image of the Sacred Heart and the image of Our Lady. And the image of Our Lady is Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And so when it came over to the Blessed Mother, so first we go to Sacred Heart, we would kind of caress or touch the heart of Jesus, and then we would go over to the Blessed Mother, and I would touch her hand, and then I would pick my brother. My brother is 7 years my junior, so I would have like pick him up, and then he would touch her hand. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, it's just another practice. But we were both kind of realizing how that little moment was like, in a certain way, Mary, be with me, subconsciously. And then we were just kind of going through our own vocation stories of how many times the Blessed Mother has just implemented and pushed herself into our story, into our lives. Because that's how the Blessed Mother is. She wants to, input herself in our life. And especially for priests, it's so important for us, who we are celibate, and but we were saying the only reason why we are as masculine as we are is because of our relationship with the Blessed Mother and the maternity, and that bleeds out to other relationships, particularly with other women, as well. And we were saying how in our
I don't even know how to explain it, really. It's like, it would seem like paradoxical because like I'm tended with Mary, so it allows me to be very masculine. But it is. I'm very comfortable in my masculinity because I'm like, I don't know.
Because it's vulnerability. I think that's
so.
really, the more vulnerable you are, the stronger you become. It's like in St. Paul, it's in our weaknesses that we're strong, so yeah.
So, well, thank you. I want to close off with, I want to do a shout out to Tuni Thengpe, which is TNTT, or a Vietnamese Eucharistic Youth Movement.
Yes.
Because we were both part of this movement, and it actually
and that's how we knew each other.
Yeah, exactly. How we knew each other, and that always kept the window open for us to this vocation. We live different lives now. We don't attend to it like we did before.
Yeah.
But it was always a crack that left our hearts open to this possibility. So we are very appreciative for what we have there. So it's a shout out to you.
Yeah, shout out to
and
you guys.
I get to continue to work with them now, and then him a little bit in
back home in Orange County. So shout out to Orange County TG, as well. I know I haven't been as involved, but I do really draw back to a lot of my time in Tuni. It really formed me, at least in terms of community, in faith, as well, and really my vocation. Because again, that retreat that I shared about, if it wasn't for my Tuni, Kakam in Tuni, I wouldn't have been where I was and be where I am today. So yeah, shout out to them for sure.
I guess the last message for all of you out there, guys and girls, if you do have the inkling or even the possibility of a vocation, don't be afraid. Honestly, that is the phrase, do not be afraid, because I feel it's unfair what I get to enjoy. And it's the same with you. I think it's pretty mutual what we think. And we want to share it with you guys to realize that God is so good and he will never, ever be outdone in generosity.
Yeah, there's a beauty to it. And I end with the words of the Blessed Mother, when the moment that she, the Annunciation, when Angel Gabriel came to her, and of course she kind of grappled with that at the beginning, how can this be done? But what did she do at the very end? Be it done unto me according to thy word. So, be it done unto me according to the Lord's word. Continue to follow his call, his beck and call. We guarantee you see how joyful we are, and that's the joy that we want to be able to share with you. Okay? Because God bless, and do not be afraid.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.